As someone who is writing books, I'm starting to realize more and more every day of why it is so important to protect your energy. And entrepreneur or not, I feel like anybody can relate to this. So for those who is tuning into this video, I had written a dark version of a Cinderella story and I had put this out on Amazon, I believe the beginning of December of last year. And this is a two-part story and I am in the mix of finishing a part 2. And I had a goal to finish part 2 by the end of June. And I have, as of yet, to complete the full book. And the reason being of why I couldn't finish this book is because I have been arguing. I wouldn't even say arguing, but certain conversations I was placed in just had me, it just took so much energy out of me to where by the time I was at my desk and ready to write, my mind wasn't even clear. And it's because of all these but I even say arguments, kind of arguments. It's just these stupid debates that people are getting into, and social media is definitely to blame for this. And honestly, now that I am thinking about it, social media is not really entirely to blame for this. It's just the individual who chooses to engage in these type of conversations, and YouTubers who choose to make certain type of content that will cause more and more of a separation. And these conversations are not necessarily bad, because to me, I feel like it's important to hear out both sides, like the manosphere and the feminism and whatnot. It's important to hear each side of the story so you can understand why things are the way they are. And the problem is that rather than just hearing everyone out and meeting everyone in the middle, it's like people just want to cause more of a separation. It's like, I'm right and you're wrong and this is what it is. And that's not necessarily the case. So when I'm at certain places like my job and people want to engage in these conversations, and then I get pulled into these conversations and just hearing the stupidity of what people be saying, it's like, I'm all for hearing people out, and I can't really call somebody's opinion stupid because just because I don't feel this certain way doesn't mean the next person has to feel the same way I feel. So, I don't know if that's making sense, but not to call these ideologies that people be having stupid. It's just certain things that they say, I feel like it's getting more dumber and dumber by the second. Like, what's some examples? I have an example. So there's this guy at my job who likes to talk about all this stuff, and I don't know, I feel like he's just getting fed with all these TikTok videos. And I had came across this YouTuber that kind of has his talking points, so I feel like he listens to this chick who I think she's a part of the manosphere. I don't know. But she has a lot of the manosphere talking points, and a lot of women would consider her a pick-me. But I'm not going to say her YouTube name. But she made this video talking about basically how lesbians are trying to do like this whole takeover, like want more women to convert to like being a lesbian. It was something like that, or it was something that she talked about some video Kalani had posted, this singer named Kalani, and how she's a lesbian and whatever. And I don't know, it was just, I don't know, it was weird. It was basically like how lesbians are decentering men or some crap like that, and they want more women to themselves. It's just, anyway. So she was saying things like how women need men, and an example she made is that without men, how can we live in like these apartments and stuff, because they're the ones that build these houses and apartments and blah 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 blah. And I'm over here like, okay, yeah, they built houses and apartments, but that's their job. As a construction worker, you was hired to build houses and apartments because this is how this society is built up. We're not living like, in small villages and stuff like that where we're all helping each other out. Basically, in a sense, we're all very much dependent on each other. We all depend on one another for certain things like building houses and grocery stores and whatnot. So in this case of the construction workers, yeah, a lot of them that's in this field are men, but I mean, that's their job, to build apartments and houses. So I don't know where she was getting at, the whole needing. I mean, that's just, it's because the way this society is built up. I'm pretty much sure if it wasn't designed this way, we wouldn't be. See, this is what I mean by these conversations like getting a little bit more stupid and stupider, because I'm just like, what? Like, and then when I get into these, and I hate getting into debates. I love to get into like conversations where we hear each other out because none of us have it completely correct. But instead, people just want to argue, and then I end up arguing because now I'm frustrated, and by the time I get back home or whatever and I'm ready to type, my brain is freaking drained. And I am learning that more and more that our brain is like a freaking battery. It's only so much energy we can consume before we just collapse. So with that being said, and with all of my experience with June being so draining and exhausting, I looked so tired and I was so agitated every other day because of these stupid debates and arguments. I really had to think of like, I had to stop and think like, what am I doing? And if I keep going this route, I'm going to be like everybody else. And I don't want to be like everybody else, just arguing all day, every day, and just being agitated and being super negative. Like, that ain't me. And with that, I am going to, for me, and I feel like for everybody else, even if you're an entrepreneur or not, savor your energy. Like, if you find yourself about to get into, if you find yourself about to be pulled into these type of conversations and you not really about that life, like you really just trying to chill and just vibe out, or you have a lot of plans that you're planning on doing, like a lot of goals, you don't have time for the bullshit, savor your energy. And for me, the rest of the summer, I gotta finish this book. Like, I have to finish this book and just forget all that negative energy and conversation. Nope, I will not. And after what have happened the past 2 weeks, for those who don't really know who I'm about and my channel, I'm part of a indigenous American Indian, whatever you want to call it, Native American tribe. And what happened a couple of weeks ago, there was a situation that my tribe had came across where some of them was violently attacked for praying in a certain area. These residents in that area attacked some of them, and just hearing that just makes you want to jump back into reality because there's bigger things going on. And from that situation, I was actually inspired to write a horror story, and I'm gonna get a little bit into that. So I already started jotting down notes for this horror story that I am going to create, and as soon as I finish this part 2 of my Cinderella story, I'm hopping into this horror story that I'm going to create. And nobody in real life, like nobody in my tribe, is going to be in this story. But just to speak a little bit on it, the story is basically about someone who buys a plot of land and they come across something that should have never been touched. And this person decides to go ahead and finish on with his plans. And then from that, it gets crazy from there. And I don't want to speak so much on this, but I feel like this, in my head, I picture this being a movie because the characters that I created so far and I'm still coming up with, it's given Michael Myers or Jason, very scary and not as gruesome because I don't really like gruesome stories, but scary enough to where it just sends chills down your spine. And when I came up with the story in my head, I told a few people and they really liked this idea, so I'm definitely going to run with this. And next month I'm planning on a trip to Salem, Massachusetts, and the reason being is because over there it's like very witchy. They have like this witch city, and there's so many like museums of like monsters and things of that sort. So I'm going to be there for a few days just to get super inspired, take notes. I actually want to spend my time in a hotel there. One of the hotels there is known to be haunted, and I actually want to start writing some of the horror story in the hotel. And I'm excited about that. Although my boyfriend, when I told him the idea of wanting to spend our nights at a haunted hotel, he is kind of like, he's like, what? Because me and him are just we're two different beings. Like, to describe us, if you've watched Harry Potter, I'm like a Slytherin to the T, and he's like a Hufflepuff with a little bit of Slytherin, but he's majority a Hufflepuff. And I don't want to freak him out too much, so I might cut out that idea and just get like just book a regular hotel, nothing that's like haunted. But I don't know. I'm gonna see. So for those who don't really know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that I'm inspired to create this horror story based off of a person buying a plot of land and came across something that should have never been touched. Well, basically, just to make a long story short, I am a part of a Tuscarora tribe down in North Carolina, and this person had bought a plot of land out there and is planning on building houses and whatever else. And during construction, they came across a old Indian village that used to be there, and they found like more than 2,000 artifacts of indigenous items. And now my tribe, along with other tribes, are trying to fight to keep this land preserved, or at least preserve the more than 2,000 artifacts that was found there. And from that, just everything else that has had happen, I've been moved and inspired to create this horror story. And I feel like with this book that I'm going to publish, and if I'm visioning it being like a movie or whatever, I feel like it would definitely put out a awareness of things that go on in the indigenous community. And yeah, so with that being said, and all these plans that I have in my noggin that I want to complete, I can't be engaged in all of this unnecessary debates and arguments. And as a writer, and if you are an entrepreneur or not, my advice is to stay out of those conversations, because I'm not going to say conversations, these debates, because it doesn't really go anywhere. These people just want to argue and argue and argue, and that's all it will ever be. No one wants to meet each other in the middle and have like a understanding of things and like a neutral agreement. Like, no one wants to have that, and how we can better ourselves. It's just constant separations, And honestly, that's what these big bosses want, basically, the government. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that one here, but and yeah, I just keep giving them what they want. And this is why society is the way it is. Period.